everybody, I'm Wendy Sod. Welcome back to the Sodcast. So today's case I have for you is that of serial killer Shawn Grate. Who was Shawn Grate? Well, he was a piece of crap. Okay, let's just start with that. This dirtbag was originally from Marion, Ohio. Then later in his life, he moved to Ashland, Ohio, where for the last 3 months of this timeline, he lived in an abandoned house at 363 Covert Court in Ashland. And he just was kind of squatting there, doing his thing. Now, let me tell you a little bit of back history on this creep. So, Shawn, his murder spree began back in 2005 that we know of, and it ended in 2016. Now, over that time period, we know of 5 people that he murdered, and a 6th that luckily got away, and she was the reason that this asshole was caught, okay? So, going back a little bit, not that I give a crap about, these serial killers' childhood and everything, but he did have a pretty shitty childhood from what I read. His mom was not the best. I imagine she did, tried her best, but who knows. Anyway, I don't give a shit about his childhood because I don't think that matters. But, so he, from what I read, had some mental health issues growing up, some anger issues. At 18 years old, it was his first documented assault on a woman, a girl, I should say. It was his girlfriend at the time. He had choked her. At age 23, he choked and attacked, after breaking into her house, his 17-year-old girlfriend, who was pregnant at the time. And then a second time broke into her house after that and held the girlfriend and her sister captive with a butcher knife. After this, he was then arrested for burglary and was charged with a felony, I believe. And he got 4 years in prison, which he only sat for 7 months. When he was released, he right away broke his parole by yet again threatening another girlfriend with a butcher knife. He was sent back to prison and had to sit out the remainder of the 4 years of his burglary sentence. So at that time, this was 2003 when he was released, and we don't really know what Shawn was doing in that time period from 2003 to 2005 when he committed his first murder. But let's get right into these murders. I'm going to break them down. I'm going to try to stay on the timeline the best that I could figure out. I might get the order wrong of these girls because nothing was really exact in the documentation, but let's start with 2005. So Shawn was living in Marion County at the time in Ohio, and back in that day, there was salesmen that went door to door. That's not so common these days, but this lady by the name of, I believe it was Dana Nicole Lowry, or I've seen just Nicole Lowry. She was a 26-year-old girl that was going door to door selling magazines. Now, his mother also lived nearby, and I guess she had bought this subscription to these magazines, and per Shawn's account, the magazines were not delivered. So he was furious about this. He hunts down the woman, convinces her to get into the car with him, and he proceeds to stab her in the throat and dump her body. Now, Miss Lowry, her body wasn't found for approximately 2 years in a field in Marion County. And at the time, it wasn't tied to him. Unfortunately, he wasn't caught then because we still have, you know, 4 more murders to go. So moving along, let's move up to 2015, I believe, was his next victim. Her name was Stacy Stanley, or Stacy Hicks. Now, I personally knew Stacy. She was from New London, Ohio, which is one of my hometowns, and lovely, lovely girl. I worked with her at a nursing home, and she was a nurse's aide at the time. And I actually remember, you know, her just not coming back to work anymore, and we all just assumed that she quit. So right around the time of September 8th of 2015, I believe that Stacy and her son Corey were supposed to meet up at Applebee's restaurant in Sandusky, Ohio, to have dinner. And one of the two of them canceled the plans for whatever reason. And Corey, the son, stated that he had talked to his mom multiple times throughout the day and through the evening. And the last time he spoke with her, she was in Ashland at a BP station, and she was going there to get coffee, and she ended up with a flat tire. And she told him on the phone that she was getting help from a man that she knew, and then another guy that she had just met was also helping with the flat tire. And I don't believe that she gave the name of the man on the phone. This man turned out to be Shawn Grate. Now, once the tire was fixed, I guess Stacy decided she was going to thank him by giving the guy a ride home. And that was the last time that Stacy was ever seen. Now, family obviously became concerned. And they went to her home where she lived at the time in Greenwich. And they broke into her home and couldn't find her. Later on, they found her car, which in the car, I guess Corey said that the car seat was put all the way back, and Stacy was kind of on the short side. So he found this unusual. He found a pack of cigarettes in the car, a Camel brand that Stacy didn't smoke. So things just looked a little suspicious right from the get-go. So after not being able to find her on September 11th, the family filed a missing person report. Getting along to our next victim, Elizabeth Griffin. Now Griffith, not Griffin. It's my nephew, Griffin. Elizabeth Griffith. Griffith, for fuck's sake, say it. Okay, one more time. Elizabeth Griffith. Now, she also lived in Ashland and knew Shawn Grate, had been socializing with him, and she was, I guess, having some mental health issues. I don't want to focus on this too much because it's just not fair to her to bring out anything. But she was having some mental health issues, and I bring this up because she had really stayed in contact with her therapist and talked to her very frequently. And she would often call the mental health hotline. And I guess they reported that she would call just about every other day. And they kind of thought that it was just to have somebody to talk to, you know. And so when these calls stopped coming in, they became concerned about her. And Elizabeth's counselor reported that she had received a call from Elizabeth and was unable to take the call at the time. But she said the last time she had spoke to Elizabeth, she was unusually giddy and happy. And, you know, the therapist said that she kind of had the feeling that she met somebody and that she kind of had a crush on somebody and, you know, was happy about that. That was in August of 2016. And after she was last seen with Shawn Grate, apparently they had been playing badminton together at a club nearby, and that was the last time she was seen. So, time goes on, and let's get up to September 13th of 2016. Now, on this day, the police receive a frantic 911 call. And I'm telling you guys, if you can go listen to this, please do it. It's so heartbreaking and just an absolute, it just gives you chills. It's a terrifying phone call. This woman, and we're going to call her Jane Doe because her name is not made public for good reason. She calls 911 and she's whispering, and she tells them on the call that I've been kidnapped. I've been kidnapped by a man named Shawn Grate, and he's been holding me for 2 days in his home. And she's begging them on the phone to come get her and rescue her. And she says that she was in the bed and she was bound, I believe, by her wrist to the bed. She managed to get herself free while he was sleeping and took his cell phone, and that's when she snuck to the corner of the room and quietly called 911. Now, this call goes on for right around 19 minutes, and towards the end of the phone call, you will hear a taser being set off, or a stun gun, where she accidentally bumped it, and oh, it's just absolutely terrifying. She says he sat straight up in the bed and swung his feet over and put his feet on the floor. And he's so groggy and he's looking around. And it's dark in the room, right? So he doesn't notice her being out of the bed. And he lies back down. Moments after this, you hear the police bust through the door, rush her out of there. And you hear them go in and start screaming and yelling at naked Shawn Grate to get up out of the bed. So at that time, they arrest him, obviously. They take him down and they begin this interrogation. Now, they had not yet searched his house, okay? They're waiting on the search warrant to be written up before they can begin their search. But in the meantime, they use some tactics on Shawn, and he kind of falls for it. Not right away. I believe this was maybe a 5-hour interrogation to begin with. And he slowly begins to break down. Now, he doesn't right away admit to kidnapping her. It doesn't take him long to admit it, but he talks more about her like, oh, we were going to get married. She didn't believe in sex before marriage, but she gave in, and at times he would say, you know, she wanted it, but she just didn't know she wanted it. And the first time, yes, I forced it on her, but, you know, all the other times after that, she just went with it. She was okay with it. Now, this is absolutely not true. There are statements from Jane Doe saying that he violated her in every imaginable way. This is just a wholesome, sweet girl who was so into religion and so close to God, and she just, you know, would constantly carry her Bible around with her. She didn't believe in sex before marriage. And for him to do what he did to her, and oh, it just disgusts me. Just disgusts me. So eventually, he slowly but surely admits that yes, he had raped her and that it wasn't willing. And as time goes on, he does confess to the gruesome details of what he did to her, and we are not going to go into this, but it just horrific things he did. So police start using the tactic that they know more than they actually do. They hadn't, like I said, they hadn't searched the house yet. They're working on getting the search warrant. But they do have this other missing woman that I think they know was an acquaintance of his, that is Elizabeth Griffith. So they start saying to Shawn, you know, where's Elizabeth? Do you know what happened to her? He starts saying things like, no, I don't know what happened to her, but, you know, she was crazy and she was needy and, you know, just all these horrible things. And so the search, they finally get the search warrant for the house. They go into the house, and this house is just absolutely disgusting. Now, he's living in an abandoned house that he had been living in for 3 months in Ashland. And I don't know if it had electricity. I think it had electricity, but no running water. So you can only imagine. So the police notice in this house that there's just a deplorable smell, okay? An unrecognizable smell. So they start to search. They start to move trash and whatnot. And they discover that there is a closet, which all the seams on the closet door had been duct taped. And along the bottom of the door, to cover up the gap, a blanket was pushed up against the gap in the door. They open this door to find one of the most gruesome sights. Poor Elizabeth is laying in the closet, naked, face down, and the way that they just described her, you know, these guys say that it will always stick in their minds what they seen that day. And I'm not going to go into those details because it's gross and it's just disrespectful to her. We don't want to remember that way, obviously. But they continue to search, and they go down into the basement, start moving things around, and in the basement, under a pile of trash, they find the body of sweet, sweet Stacy Stanley, also naked from the waist down and deceased. So, just makes me sick, okay? So they continue back to the interrogation. As they're learning this information, it's being relayed to the interrogators, and they bring this information up to Shawn, and they're pushing him and pushing him. And he slowly starts to admit, yeah, you know, you're going to find these bodies. This was before he knew that they found them. Then, throughout the investigation, later that day, he confesses to 3 other murders he confesses to. One, he led them to her body later that day, which was the body of, I believe, his 4th victim, Candace Cunningham. Now, she was buried, I believe, in a shallow grave or just thrown in the woods. I'm not sure what he did. But she was found in the woods behind a burnout house in Ashland. And he led them to her body. Then he confessed to the murder of Rebecca Lacey, I believe is how you say her name. Now, her body was found in Ashland County in a field the year prior. He also confessed to killing her. No, that's not it. He also confessed to the 2005 murder of Dana Lowry. Now, Dana was selling magazines at the time in Marion County, and she didn't deliver on his mom's subscription. So what does Shawn do? Hunts her down and kills her over a magazine subscription. Now, her body wasn't found until 2007. And, you know, like I said earlier in the video, it wasn't tied to him at the time, but he did confess to it. So, you know, Shawn goes to trial, and he ends up getting the death sentence. He is set for execution in 2025, and you better believe that some families are going to be having a party on that day. Now, I find it very interesting that, you know, they went to his mom and they had talked to his mom, and she did not have a whole lot of real nice things to say about Shawn. She made statements like, the devil is inside him. He's the devil incarnate. She compared him to Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer. And she made the statement that, you know, she wouldn't be surprised if there was more bodies out there. Just crazy, crazy to hear that the mother would say these things about her own son, but she knows him best, I guess. So Shawn sits in Chillicothe Correctional Institution to this day, and like I said, he's set for execution in 2025. He is out of his appeals. So that is the case of Shawn Grate, and we are going to end it there, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I know it was a short one, but I didn't want to get into a whole big thing about details on what happened to these girls, because we just want to remember them for who they were. And that is the conclusion of this case, you guys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.